At that point, it was like, I'm gonna die. My consultant was looking for these clinical trials, and she found this one at Great Ormond Street. I'm cancer-free now.
Curing Alyssa was a world first, but cancer is still the biggest killer of children in the UK. Will you help us do more? Search Gosh Care to give £3 a month and help build a new children's cancer centre at Great Ormond Street Hospital, a home for breakthrough research with world-class facilities to help beat cancer for more children. Together, with your kind support, we can help save lives and transform children's cancer care for decades to come. Text CARE to 70125 to give £3 a month and help build our new children's cancer centre. Together, we can beat cancer for more children.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hello and welcome to this Wednesday edition of the World Report. I'm Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. Let's take a look at what's making headlines around the world. We begin with the neighborhood where calls for restoration of democracy are in fact growing in Bangladesh. Three associate bodies of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or the BNP, are in fact gearing up to hold a massive rally at 2 p.m. local time. The BNP is demanding early election. For more on this story, my colleague Saurabh joins me. Saurabh, if you can hear to me, how's the government responding to the civil unrest and the demands of these various political groups? Also, what are some primary reasons behind the delay in setting a definitive election date by the interim government headed by Muhammad Yunus, of course? Saurabh.
Well, it's the lack of perhaps a reason, a proper reason that explains the delay in laying out a roadmap for elections that's led to a situation where there are protests now taking place. Now, where are the protests taking place? They are taking place in Dhaka's Neapolitan area, which is, of course, the office of the BNP. That's the area where the BNP office is situated. And what we know is that this rally, this protest today that's taking place, and there are massive crowds that have gathered already in the area. These protests are taking place and these are organized by the affiliates of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. Now, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party is one party that has said that elections should be held by the end of this year, which is December this year. And the army also has echoed the same demand. But obviously, Muhammad Yunus, as his critics argue or critics accuse him, is delaying elections, perhaps making a bid to stay on in power. And that's something that perhaps is leading to a situation where political parties are now beginning to feel that there needs to be more concrete steps taken towards elections, which was the primary mandate for the interim government, of course, when it came to power. Now, obviously, Muhammad Yunus is away on a 4-day official trip to Japan as these protests take place, but the protests are taking place in Bangladesh. Not just today's protests by the BNP affiliates, but also protests that have been taking place organized by government employees who are protesting an ordinance that allows the government to sack government employees for misconduct without lengthy process. And that, they say, is taking away the sort of protection from arbitrary dismissals. So obviously these protests are taking place, but today's protest is massive, political, and the demand is quite clear that the BNP, of course, wants elections by the end of this year, which is December this year, something that the Yunus-led interim government has dilly-dallied on and has been wishy-washy on a date.
Well, in fact, thank you for getting us the latest there, Saurabh. And of course, many around the world are wondering when, in fact, will Bangladesh's interim government hold the promised elections. Now, moving on, SpaceX launched Starship on its 9th test flight. It was a crucial test mission after 2 previous failures. The flight started smoothly, but Starship encountered some issues in orbit. The first stage Super Heavy booster exploded shortly before it was expected to splash down. And fuel leaks on the upper stage, in fact, vehicle caused it to spin uncontrollably before its planned re-entry through Earth's atmosphere. The White House has reportedly moved to cancel remaining federal contracts to Harvard University amid an escalating battle with American universities. Now, Harvard has already sued the Trump administration over halted funding and also a ban on, in fact, enrolling international students. As experts highlight, meanwhile, by targeting institutions, cancelling grants and firing government researchers, Trump is impairing the ability to solve problems, prevent diseases, design policy, inform the public, and also make technological advancements. Here's a very special report.
The attack on Harvard and its international students is part of a deeper effort to defund and dismantle the academic world.
Trump has begun a dangerous march to roll back civil rights in this country. If there is anything to learn from this Jewish history, it's that when we push people out of our schools because of their identity, it's a symptom of a morally bankrupt politics.
But Donald Trump is attacking these freedoms because they get in the way of his authoritarian takeover. This is what authoritarians do.
By framing Harvard as a bastion of Marxist maniacs and liberal bias, would you argue that the Trump administration is now using the global visibility of elite academia to actually signal a new ideological litmus test for US institutions?
Thanks as always for having me. Yeah, I think what's clearly happening here is it's an ideological battle between Trump and those who oppose him. And, you know, anybody who knows Harvard in and out knows that Harvard is hardly a Marxist far-left institution. I mean, this is one of the richest organizations in the world. It's an organization that has produced any number of billionaire capitalists. I mean, it doesn't even pass the smell test. What it really is a front for attacking anybody who doesn't agree with Trump's particular ideology. That's the ideological role and war that's going on here. I mean, as I think the last clip you showed said, it's part of the authoritarian project. Trump is trying to strangle off institutions that won't narrowly go along with his line.
Harvard's president has called the curbs on international student enrollment devastating, as you are also highlighting. But Daniel, from a diplomatic standpoint, does this not then send a contradictory message to countries that invest heavily in sending students to the US, as you are pointing out?
I think it does. It sends a message that the United States is now less open and less welcome to international students than it was before. And look, you can say it's just one university, it's just Harvard, but they're picking arguably the most famous and prominent university in the United States. So there's no way that's not going to send a chilling message. And I think that also is bad for American power in its own way, right? It's a form of American soft power, of American outreach. As you were saying, diplomacy, it's really a key word here. The United States can reach out not just to other countries' governments, but to other countries' societies by saying, look, we want you here. We want to give you an opportunity to study with us, to come into the country, have that be a pathway for you. And you're shutting that door out. You're shutting that diplomatic messaging down.
Right, Daniel, as always, thank you so much for joining us with your views. We will, of course, revert to you for regular updates.
Well, staying with the US, where the COVID vaccine will no longer be recommended for healthy children or healthy pregnant women, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said on Tuesday. Now, the decision was a significant departure from the government's previous approach of recommending annual shots for everyone 6 months and older. Meanwhile, some public health experts have criticized the decision, pointing out that the risk of severe diseases and even hospitalization among infants was comparable to that among adults 65 and older. Others condemned the decision to stop recommending the shots for pregnant women who are at high risk, in fact, of severe illness and complications from COVID. The US State Department is dismissing concerns about deliveries of humanitarian assistance into Gaza by a US-backed private initiative that bypasses the UN and establishes aid organizations. Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce told reporters, in fact, in Washington on Tuesday that such concerns were unfounded and that the most important priority is, in fact, getting aid into Gaza, the besieged enclave, no matter who's delivering it. She also blamed Hamas for trying to stop convoys organized by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation from getting to distribution centers. Here's more.
The fact of the matter is, Hamas has been opposed to this dynamic. They have attempted to stop the aid movement through Gaza to these distribution centers. They have failed, but they certainly tried. The bottom line is, the real story here is that the aid is moving through, and in that kind of an environment, it's not surprising that there might be a few issues involved, but the good news is that those seeking to get aid to the people of Gaza, which is not Hamas, have succeeded.
Chaos erupted on the second day of aid operations by a new US-backed group in Gaza as desperate Palestinians overwhelmed a center distributing food on Tuesday, breaking through fences. Israel said nearby troops fired warning shots. Meanwhile, an AP journalist heard Israeli tank and gunfire and also saw a military helicopter firing flares. The Israeli military, meanwhile, has said its troop fired the warning shots in the area outside the center and that control over the situation was established. Meanwhile, at least 3 injured Palestinians were seen by the Associated Press being brought from the scene, one of them even bleeding from his leg. Listen in.
احنا اشتهينا السكر، اشتهينا السيرج، هاي جابوا لنا سكر وجابوا لنا سيرج، وهاي جابوا لنا طحين، وهي طحين، اولادنا كانوا مشتهين اللقمة، اكلنا عدس، اكلنا معكرونة، والتجار بيعونا كل حاجات غالية.
EU countries have formally approved a new €150 billion loan program to help rearm in the face of Russia and worries over US reliability. Now, this is according to the Polish presidency of the bloc. The safe borrowing scheme, backed by the EU's central budget, was proposed by Brussels in March, and the bloc rushes to boost its defenses. The King Charles III was given a heartfelt standing ovation in Canada's Parliament in Ottawa after a historic speech in support, in fact, of the country staying strong and free. My colleague Maha Siddiqui, meanwhile, unpacks the latest from Vancouver.
Many Canadians are feeling anxious and worried about the drastically changing world around them. Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect.
King Charles III said that true north was indeed strong and free. And that's the sentiment or the message that King Charles III, as the head of state of Canada, wanted to convey from the Canadian Parliament to Canada's neighbor down south, the United States. As the threat from the Trump administration on Canada over annexation looms large, Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, and his Liberal government had invited King Charles to make this address and open the Parliament. The last time that the Parliament was opened by the monarch and the speech from the throne was delivered by the monarch themselves was in 1977 by Queen Elizabeth. King Charles III referred to the first speech that was made by Queen Elizabeth in 1957 in the Canadian Parliament at a time when the memories of World War II were still fresh and there was an onset of the Cold War, a period of uncertainty, in some ways drawing parallels to the geopolitical uncertainties at this juncture, and how Canada needs to remain free, pluralistic, protect its democracy, as well as the rule of law. He said that Mark Carney's government is committed to all these aspects. He also spoke about the trade war and said that US and Canada were negotiating an economic and security agreement while Canada was opening up its access and trade opportunities with other partners as well. He also spoke about how Canada will make an effort to break the interprovincial barriers and make it a one economy rather than 13 separate economies, which has been much criticized by experts as well as the people, considering that much of it and much of these policies have led to Canada's dependence on trade on the United States.
UK police say 50 people have been treated in hospitals after a car rammed into a crowd of Liverpool football fans celebrating their team's English Premier League championship, and 11 remain in hospital. Meanwhile, police are continuing to question the suspected driver of a car that ploughed into a crowd during Liverpool's Premier League victory parade on Monday. Assistant Chief Constable Jenny Sims of the Merseyside Police said the patients were all stable. Listen in.
Following the incident yesterday, I can confirm on behalf of the National Health Service that we are aware of 50 people who were treated at hospital for ongoing treatment. Of those, 11 remain in hospital for ongoing treatment. They are all in a stable condition, and I am pleased to say that they appear to be recovering well. I want to take the opportunity to pay tribute to the brave members of the emergency services who were on the scene of yesterday's incident within a matter of seconds. Following such a shocking incident, they immediately ran towards an extremely uncertain and potentially dangerous situation in an effort to protect members of the public and fellow emergency responders from harm.
Meanwhile, car ramming survivor Jack Trotter said he was clipped by the vehicle, which injured his back and legs and also resulted in the use of crutches. Listen in.
I was taking videos with just random Liverpool fans. So I was, just having a ball and singing away. And then I didn't know anything at all was happening until Abby had started screaming my name, Jack. And then I sort of put my phone down and looked up. And then what happened was the car just started ramming through people. He had hit me, and then when he had hit my legs, I just basically sort of span around. So I had just about dodged the middle of the bonnet, and then he clipped my legs with sort of the side of his bonnet.
News from the neighborhood now, where Pakistan's Islamabad has in fact banned child marriage, offering hope that the practice could eventually be outlawed across the Islamic Republic. The bill faced fierce opposition in Parliament, with some religious leaders criticizing it even. Still, Pakistan is among the 10 countries with the highest number of child marriages. Climate-fueled flooding has led to a further surge of monsoon brides, as they are called. Now this as poverty-stricken families in villages marry off their young daughters for money. And the European Commission expressed serious concerns over a Hungarian law that would allow bans on public events by the LGBTQ+ communities as pressure mounts on the country's populist government over democratic backsliding. Speaking in Brussels on Tuesday, the EU Commissioner for Democracy, Justice and Rule of Law, Michael McGrath, said that if adopted, the proposed legislation would constitute a serious breach of the EU principle and EU law. He also added that the Commission would not hesitate to use the tools at its disposal to ensure the EU law is safeguarded. Here's more.
In particular, we do have serious concerns about the draft law on transparency tabled in Parliament earlier this month, and I raised this again at the hearing today. The Commission believes that if adopted, the proposed legislation would constitute a serious breach of EU principles and EU law. And last week, together with the Executive Vice President Henry Verkunen, I wrote to the Hungarian government asking that the draft law be withdrawn from the legislative process.
And well, it's time to slip into a short break. We'll be right back.
This summer, take on the 1 Million Step Challenge for Diabetes UK. Just over 10,000 steps a day, 3 months, one life-changing challenge. Step for a happier, healthier you. Step for your loved ones. Step for everyone affected by diabetes. From the 1st of July, pound the pavement. And every pound you raise will help fund life-changing research and support. Because when you move, we move for everyone living with diabetes. So sign up for the 1 Million Step Challenge. Just search Step for Diabetes and take that life-changing first step today.
With 3, save £336 on the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. And claim a Galaxy Tab A9 Plus worth £259 when you buy today. Search 3 or head in-store today. Life needs a big network.
Welcome back. You're watching The World Report on NDTV. In the world of business, Nissan is reportedly seeking to raise more than 1 trillion yen or $7 billion through a mix of debt and asset sales to shore up liquidity as it faces a looming repayment wall next year. Now, the plan includes issuing up to 630 billion yen in bonds and convertible securities, alongside a £1 billion syndicated loan backed by the UK Export Finance. Now, the report suggests that the automaker is also eyeing disinvestment in stakes in Renault and battery firm AESC, as well as sales of plants in Mexico, South Africa, and real estate, including its Yokohama headquarters. Automaker Stellantis has reportedly appointed Italian Antonio Filosa, in fact, as its new chief executive. The new CEO succeeds Carlos Tavares, who quit the group in December after a sharp drop in profits and also sales, especially in the US, raising questions about his management and practices. Berlin on Tuesday made a bid to host the Olympics again, possibly a century after the city hosted the 1936 Games under the Nazis. Berlin Mayor Kai Wenger presented bid plans with help from 4 other German states. This as at Berlin's Olympic Stadium 2036 would be the 100th anniversary of the Berlin Games. Listen in.
Wir wollen Olympische Spiele und ich mache das nicht an Zeitfenster fest, sondern wir wollen diese Spiele nach Deutschland holen. Wir glauben, dass Berlin mit seinen Partnerinnen und Partnern ein starkes Angebot ist, damit Deutschland die Chance hat, Olympische Spiele auszurichten. Und da kommt es nicht auf Jahreszahlen an, sondern es kommt auf das gute Konzept, auf die gute Vorbereitung und vor allen Dingen auf die nachhaltige Wirkung an. Und ich glaube, darum geht es in erster Linie.
Pope Leo XIV met on Tuesday with freshly crowned Italian champion soccer team Napoli at an event in the Vatican City, as you see on your screens right now. Now, Napoli crunched its 4th Serie A title win after a 2-0 win over Calgary on Friday, with goals from Scott McTominay and Romelu Lukaku. Speaking in front of an audience of the team's players, managers and staff, the Pope cited the social aspect of Napoli's title. Here's what the Pope said.
Sappiamo quanto il calcio sia popolare in Italia e praticamente in tutto il mondo. E allora, anche sotto questo profilo, mi sembra che il valore sociale di un avvenimento come questo, che supera il fatto meramente tecnico-sportivo, è l'esempio di una squadra in senso lato che lavora insieme, in cui i talenti dei singoli sono messi al servizio dell'insieme.
A news from the entertainment world, where HBO has announced the stars of its new Harry Potter series after an open casting call last fall with 30,000 wannabe wizards. Dominic McLaughlin will take the role of Harry Potter, with Arabella Stanton as Hermione Granger and Alistair Stout as Ron Weasley. Now, HBO is hoping that the screen newcomers create magic together on screen in the same way that Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson and Rupert Grint did in the widely successful Potter movie franchise. Now, the series from showrunner Francesca Gardner and executive produced by Mark Mylod promises to be a faithful adaptation of the beloved Harry Potter books by J.K. Rowling. The author also acts as the executive producer. Ralph Macchio, Jackie Chan and Joshua Jackson walked the Karate Kid Legends red carpet Tuesday night in New York. Now, Macchio reprises his legendary role alongside Chan, who stars as a kung fu teacher. Now, Chan, who's done his share of martial art movies, talked about how important the first Karate Kid was to him. Listen to the master.
And that time, funny thing, I was very depressed. Action movie not popular anymore. And I just tried to quit. Then I saw Karate Kid brings me back. At the same time, the Rocky one was wow. yes, I have to do the best I can. You know, brings me back all the confidence. I keep training, keep training. Then until one day one director called me to do the movie. Then a success, becoming Jackie Chan. Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Karate Kid, first one.
And finally, a nun in Brazil has become an unlikely viral star after performing a beatboxing routine during an appearance on a Catholic TV channel nonetheless. Now, the clip has since been shared thousands of times with social media users, drawing comparisons, in fact, to the performing nuns and the movie Sisters Act. We'll leave you with these visuals.
Rapaz, que é isso?
It's great to be helping out before my first grandchild arrives. And after having a few repairs myself, I need to make sure they'll all be protected. Which reminds me.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance.
Hi, I'd like a quick quote.
No problem. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. UK residents aged 50 to 80 are guaranteed to be accepted. Depending on your age, your loved ones can get a cash payout up to £10,000.
Wow, that money could help with funeral costs or as a gift for my grandkid. I'll do it.
Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card and free 24/7 GP advice and health services.
He's going to be named after his granddad.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team on 0800 470 4444 or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
In People's Postcode Lottery's June draws, you could win a share of £17.8 million. For the chance to win, sign up before midnight on the 31st of May.
The law of life is that your mind should be at rest while your body is engaged in action. This knowledge was born in the Himalayas. It was born in the forests and jungles. But it is meant for people to apply in their workplace, in their homes, in the society at large.
For such gentle souls, working donkeys in the Middle East lead terribly hard lives. For such trusting animals, donkeys are too often abused and exploited. These sensitive, loyal animals often suffer the cruelest pain. This is the hard, painful life that donkeys in Egypt, the West Bank, Israel and Gaza have to endure. Too often, it's not only a hard life, it is also a short one. But there is something you can do to make their hard lives much easier. Please call Safe Haven for Donkeys on 0800 144 5802 or go online and give a life-saving gift of just £2 a month. Safe Haven for Donkeys is dedicated to transforming lives in the region. Your gift means our mobile vet clinics can provide emergency treatment for injured donkeys. We heal wounds and ensure donkeys aren't suffering. We also work with local communities, helping them to look after and cherish their donkeys. You'll help make sure there's always a place at our sanctuaries for abandoned and abused donkeys who have nowhere else to turn. Please call 0800 144 5802, text SAFE4 to 84902, go online or scan the QR code and give just £2 a month and help change a donkey's life today.
Family life. It's made of ups and downs and those little moments. But should the unthinkable happen to you? Life insurance from Legal & General can help look after monthly bills, the roof over their heads, childcare costs, and most importantly, your family. Because no one protects more families in the UK than us. Premiums start from £5 a month and they never rise. Plus there's a £100 gift card after you apply. Legal & General. Ensure life goes on.
When I woke up, they said, Alyssa, you've got leukemia. We found out that the chemo wasn't working.
Cancer is still the biggest killer of children in the UK, but innovative new treatments could help beat cancer for more children like Alyssa.
I'm cancer-free now.
Text, call or search to give £3 a month and help build a new children's cancer centre at Great Ormond Street Hospital. So together we can save more lives.
2003 is when Munna Bhai MBBS happens to you.
Right.
Dr. Asthana. And then in 2009 is when you become virus in Three Idiots. And then you make a directorial venture through Mehta Boys.
Right.
It has been quite a journey.
Yes.
But these two characters were particularly those which are seen as iconic. Would you say that they reshaped your entire, acting career?
You're absolutely right. People identify me with these two characters. I have had a learning curve through a lot of other characters too, but yes, there's no denial that these two, and if I...
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
You're watching Fault Lines. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. This is a show where we decode the truth beneath the headlines and get you all that matters ahead of the divides that pretty much shape the world. Today, we are going to now talk about the two very important aspects. One, far from peace, the Russia-Ukraine war has entered threatening new phase, where red lines are in fact being blurred, leaving Putin more defiant than ever before. And later, we discover and talk more about the US-Iran talks, whether they signal cautious optimism when it comes to a deal. We decode why Tehran's nuclear program is being seen as a threat around the world and the fault lines that matter in this complex issue. Let's first get our top story on the show. All right, as I said, the first story that we are now looking at, an emboldened Russia, a frustrated Washington, Europe and Ukraine left sidelined, with roadmap towards peace looking nowhere in sight. The Russia-Ukraine war seems to be back to its early stages, and viewers, that's extremely disturbing, simply because we seem to be farther and farther away from where exactly is that peace talk, peace negotiation, peace settlement really looking at. And why do we say that? Why is it that there is some sense of similarity? Well, the Russian aerial assault is back, and it's back on Kyiv and several other prominent Ukrainian cities. They have happened leading into a new phase of war, and that new phase includes Ukraine now being in a position to strike deep inside Russian territory. That means that Ukraine enters Russia. And will that mean Russia hitting back and NATO responding? No one knows, because those weapons that Ukraine is being armed with are NATO weapons. And this report tells you in greater detail exactly what all is happening that could change the way Russia-Ukraine war is going from here on. Take a look.
Amid stalled ceasefire talks, the Russia-Ukraine war has entered a dangerous new phase, as the largest aerial attack in the war took place on Sunday. A barrage of 400 drones and missiles struck capital Kyiv, 30 other cities and a dozen airports. Kremlin claimed the aerial attacks were in response to Ukraine's persistent attacks on Russian infrastructure. This has dashed all hopes for peace or any roadmap towards it. Three years into the war, Europe has shrugged off its hesitation to strike deep inside Russian territory, empowering Ukraine by lifting restrictions on weapons supplied to the country. By all means, a strike in the heart of Russia will most certainly start a chain reaction of a much bigger response from Moscow. Roughly 398 drones and 69 missiles rained down on Ukraine on Sunday, including Iranian-designed Shahed drones, killing at least 12 and injuring dozens. Putin's desire for comprehensive military victory has alienated the Trump administration, which is both wary and frustrated, and the war of words between Washington and Moscow is the testimony to fading possibilities of a US-brokered peace formula.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin.
Действительно признательны американцам и лично президенту Трампа за содействие в организации и в запуске этого переговорного процесса. И это очень важное достижение. Конечно, одновременно с этим это очень ответственный момент, который связан, конечно, с эмоциональной перегрузкой всех абсолютно и с эмоциональными реакциями. Вот. Мы внимательно отслеживаем всю реакцию. Вместе с тем.
With Trump's playbook only having sanctions as recourse, peace prospects are getting dimmer. More so since Moscow's well-oiled war economy is now working efficiently for Kremlin's primary economic objective. This explains why the threat of sanctions has not deterred Putin from continuing his aerial assault on Ukraine. Trump's flip-flopping foreign policy and his love-hate relationship with Putin has meant that his 24-hour commitment to end the war looks like one of his many empty promises.
All right, that tells you the context as far as why we are talking about it. I'm going to now put forth the back and forth that's happened between Trump and Putin and why peace looks farther away than ever before. Let's put that out. Powerless Trump versus, well, defiant Putin. That's what it's looking like right now. These are exact words, viewers, and phrases that have been said between the two leaders. Vladimir, stop. And then, of course, he goes on to intensify the strikes on Ukraine. Clearly, word right now has no meaning as far as these leaders are concerned. They're not taking each other's word on face value. Next up, then there is a 24-hour deadline to end the war that has been completely forgotten. So tough talk, no action. He threatens sanctions on Moscow. And then, of course, what happens in response is that Russia is stalling or has stalled truce talks on several occasions. He skipped the Istanbul meeting as well, which was probably the closest the world came to be able to understand how peace can actually take place. Let's get the next and the last graphic point, which of course is that 24-hour deadline was given as far as this war needs to end. The fact that these are being made several times again and again sort of gets lost in the fact that this 3-year war is probably farthest away from being able to get some sort of a closure. Let's quickly now get in a voice from Moscow to discuss this in greater detail. Dasha joins me from Moscow to understand how it's looking like. Dasha, we spoke last week as well, and the week before that, and the week before that. Unfortunately, the world seems to be going round and round in circles with no solutions in sight. It looks like we are farther away from peace than ever before. Dasha.
Well, as things are perceived here in the Russian capital, it is Ukraine that is not interested in finding the negotiated settlement to this conflict, and Moscow insists that it is almost ready to hand over to Ukraine its memorandum of how it sees the end to this conflict, and hopes that Kiev will be very seriously looking at this document as well. We also hear on the Russian officials repeatedly saying that the root causes of the conflict have to be eliminated. There is the 13th International security conference that is taking place these very moments in the Russian capital. And if you listen to the Russian officials who have been speaking there, they all say that the multipolar world order is being established, and it is the old perception of the West as the hegemon that is destroying all the security architecture. So from the Russian perception, these negotiations between Moscow and Kiev should continue, but also Moscow insists again on this elimination of the root causes, but also on the realities on the ground. And with that said, Moscow has been making more gains in the area of the operation, as well as in the area where Moscow would like to establish the so-called buffer zone in Ukraine, that is in the Sumy as well as the Kharkiv region. And also we are seeing the intensification of the Ukrainian attacks against the Russian region. The MOD this night reported about more than 300 Ukrainian drones being intercepted over the Russian regions, some of them even over the capital, Moscow.
Leave it there, Dasha. Thanks much for joining me from Moscow. Well, viewers, as far as this issue is concerned, the Russia-Ukraine war is not headed for peace anytime soon, and there are reasons for it. No one wants to end the war. There are no incentives to end the war at this stage. The question one is asking, is Putin better off with an ongoing war? It looks like that. The reason for that is that he wants more military victories under his belt before he sits on a table with no ceasefire, no preconditions, and just an entrenched position. But that's exactly what it's turning out for Donald Trump as well. A ceasefire is nowhere in sight. Any possible settlement or even a broad structure is not in place. What we are now fearing is that the world may move on to possibly another conflict. 3 years have gone by. How long before there's any possibility of the two sides being made to come together? No one knows. On that note, I'm going to slip into a short break, come back on the other side, talk more about, well, some of the other fault lines that we are exploring, the US-Iran fault line, and why the world needs to sit up and take notice. More on that on the other side. Stay with us.
I bought cars on finance, so I've made my claim.
If our lenders charge hidden commissions, then I've made my claim.
I could be on thousands.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim.
I've made my claim. It's so quick and simple.
You could be owed thousands in hidden commissions from vehicles bought on finance since 2007, even without the details.
I've made my claim.
Trust myclaimgroup.co.uk.
Claims made simple. Sun's out, fun's out. At Tesco Mobile, our deals will help you get the most out of summer. Get a SIM with 100 gigs of data for just £16 a month with club card prices. And what's more, we'll help you save on your summer activities by collecting £20 worth of club card points too. How you choose to spend them is up to you. It pays to be connected. Search Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
What they don't tell you about getting older is how much fun it can be. Enjoying all the things you've worked so hard for. Spending time with the people that really matter. Not to mention, finally finding that precious time for yourself. I don't want anything taking my best years away from me, but like so many people, I've seen the heartbreak that dementia can cause. That's why I'm asking everyone to order this essential free guide from Alzheimer's Research UK. It's called Your Brain Matters. We all know what's good for our heart and our lungs, but do you know how to keep your brain healthy too? Well, this guide tells you how, in 7 steps you can start taking right now, whatever your age. Just ring the number on screen to get your free copy. Inside you'll find facts and tips that can keep your brain healthy and help reduce your risk of developing dementia. It's advice you can really trust from leading dementia scientists. Read it, keep it, and check back whenever you need to. Order your free copy now. Call Alzheimer's Research UK on 0800 035 5984 or text BRAIN2 to 78866. Think of it as another way of planning for your best years, because your brain really matters.
With Post Office Over 50s life cover, enjoy peace of mind knowing your family will receive a guaranteed payout when you're gone. UK resident 50 to 80, you're guaranteed acceptance. No health checks and from just £1.15 a week. Plus free 24/7 GP access with the health and wellbeing benefit. Purchase and receive a £125 gift card for amazon.co.uk, Tesco or M&S. Call Post Office on 0800 171 2211.
We are now on to a hot button issue with complexities galore. Iran's nuclear program, there have been 4 rounds of talks. And since then, US and Iran, they've made some very incremental progress. Of course, not conclusive by a stretch. As far as a nuclear deal is concerned, it looks farther than ever before. Trump seeks complete nuclear disarmament. Iran believes that there's elbow room. It downplays Washington's threats, saying Iran will survive. Deal or not, now you should keep. Now, why is it that we should be caring about the Iran deal? Why is it that it matters to the world? Well, how does it impact global stability is the most important part. And I'm going to explain to our viewers exactly why is it that Iran's nuclear arsenal, if at all it happens, why it impacts everybody. And this is the region where Iran's writ plays large. And there is, of course, this axis of organizations, terror organizations, leading all the way back to a country that doesn't have a nuclear arsenal right now, but is working towards it. There is Lebanon. In Lebanon, there is Hezbollah. Then, of course, there is Hamas. There is Iraq's Kataib Hezbollah. Of course, in Yemen, there are the Houthi rebels. They are the ones who've been firing those long-range missiles that impact the entire Red Sea. Next, in Palestinian territories, of course, there is Hamas, and in Syria, then there is the other as well. Then there is one in Bahrain as well that is there. This is the entire nexus of organizations, of outfits that go back to the axis that leads to Iran, a country that still doesn't have, as I said, a nuclear weapon. But imagine how this will reshape if it does have a nuclear weapon, if it does have a nuclear arsenal that can have more than just civilian purposes. And that's the reason why we need to care about this. That's the reason why we need to know which way the world and the world's peace negotiations, peace ambitions are going as far as the nuclear arsenal of a potential nuclear arsenal of Iran is concerned. And what's the story right now? This report brings us up to speed with exactly what is happening as far as Iran-US talks are concerned. Take a look.
Iran's nuclear program has long been a critical fault line in the Middle East, a symbol of national pride for Tehran, while a source of anxiety for the West. Since the early days of its nuclear program, Iran has insisted that its nuclear ambitions remain focused on civilian purposes, aimed at energy production and medical research, and not nuclear weapons. Yet, suspicions run deep. From the US to the global nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, skeptical of Tehran's true intentions after Iran's secret nuclear enrichment facilities were exposed in 2002, breaking the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and eroding global trust. Today, Iran reportedly possesses over 275 kgs of uranium enriched to 60%. That's dangerously close to the 90% threshold needed for a nuclear weapon. The world has tried to contain Iran's nuclear ambitions over the past 50 years, the most significant example being the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, signed between Iran and the P5+1 countries, including the US, Russia, China, among others. That deal puts strict limits on Iran's uranium enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief.
از امروز دیگر برنامه هسته‌ای ایران با بهانه‌های واهی به عنوان تهدید صلح و امنیت برای جهان و برای منطقه نیست، بلکه برنامه هسته‌ای وسیله‌ای برای فناوری نوین در مسیر توسعه کشور و ثبات و امنیت منطقه خواهد بود.
Yet in a move that upended the Middle East forever, Donald Trump unilaterally exited the deal in 2018, reinstating US sanctions on Tehran, leaving Iran to expand its nuclear infrastructure in retaliation. The sticking point remains Iran sees uranium enrichment as a sovereign right under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, while the West fears a nuclear-armed Tehran is a threat to global stability, while Israel sees Iran and its nuclear program as an existential threat given their contentious history. While indirect talks between US and Iranian officials are ongoing, with both sides signaling that a deal is close, the stakes could not be higher. Beyond the geopolitical chessboard, a collapsed deal could mean higher oil prices, regional instability, and a renewed nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Washington demands a complete disarmament of Iran's nuclear program. Tehran seeks a fair and honorable agreement that allows limited nuclear activity in exchange for sanctions relief. Only time will tell whether diplomacy will be able to defuse one of the most dangerous flashpoints in global geopolitics. With Disha Bagchi, Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV.
So we put the context for you. We've explained to you why exactly Iran's nuclear pile, possible nuclear pile, and talks with US are of such importance to the world. We told you the fact, what happens, how the